And so these curves are starting to intersect. The technologies we'll be talking about today, though, could be 1/10 the cost of what you're paying for electricity right now. Once they're finally perfected and they're, they've got the bugs worked out, you can get economies of scale going. You can make one of these things, and you can make energy completely affordable for everyone on the planet, and you get rid of the grid and the control that these guys who are racking our planet with problems are able to control us with the ability to control power and our purse strings and whatnot. Just think, if you don't have to stop for fuel when you're driving your car, if you don't have to pay the electricity for your house, you don't have to worry about your house getting too cold because you've got this really cheap energy generator in your garage, the entire spectrum of societal infrastructure and the way we deal with one another will be changed. We will move from a scarcity mentality where we have to fight and compete over everything to an abundance mentality where we can start thinking about what are our natural God-given talents and we can develop those talents. We don't have to worry about eking out a living and being slaves to some New World Order oligarchy. That's where we're heading with, and free energy will be one of the drivers that will introduce on a technological basis both the technology capability to live in that world, and it will help foster the enlightened thinking of independence and individual responsibility and not depending on a central authority. So when we say free energy, we've talked about solar, wind, geothermal, tide. Those are free energy sources. You don't have to pay for the sun. You don't have to pay for the wind. And so we like to call those free energy along with the more exotic ones, the cold fusion, the magnet motors, over unity electromagnetic systems, water power, some of the more exotic ones, where you actually, water itself, in the conversion of water to fuels, you're getting some over unity principles where you put in X amount of energy and you're getting 2, 3, 10 times as much energy out as what you put in, because it's harnessing something in the environment somehow. Here's a longer list of energy technologies. On the left-hand side, the conventional technologies that you hear about, and on the right-hand side, some of the more exotic ones. And we'll go into some of these in detail in talking about, and I should tell you, in my selection of the top 10, I use a little bit of bias in trying to get a cross-section of different kinds of exotic technologies. So what are the determining factors of why I selected the 10 that I did? I've been in the field of renewable energy, as Michael was saying, in a focused manner for about almost 8 years now. Coming in May, I think, is my anniversary. It will be 8 years that I've been totally immersed. When I say immersed, I'm not talking full-time job. I'm talking about eating, breathing, the time you wake up in the morning to the time you go to bed. Ask my wife. This is something I'm very passionate about. And so before that, I was as passionate about, looking at codes in word studies and looking at geopolitical things and studying conspiracies and, the 9/11 thing. I've been a maverick all my life, and so I would present to you that as a credential of why I'm qualified to look outside the box, because I've been outside the box all my life. And even as a kid, my dad had a solar stuff going with on at home. My mom was making fruit leather when I was a kid, drying fruit out in the car where it's nice and warm. You can buy the stuff she used to make for us as a kid, and I'm 47 years old, so she was 46. Don't want to get myself older sooner than I need to. Anyway, so I'm a maverick. Free Energy News and Directory Service. If you go to freeenergynews.com, that's a website that I've had up for a long time, covering the field of free energy on a daily basis. People are sending me really great stories, and so I'm digesting this stuff, looking at it, culling it through, trying to find the best things and featuring those things in our news. On any given day, I would say that if I'm putting 4 stories in the news, I skipped over 10 that I could have posted, and I had to just kind of make a judgment, a triage, so to speak, of what am I going to spend my time making a news bullet on. And so that process helps kind of get the gears going, the juices going. I'm the free energy newsman on the planet, basically. You know, when people think about, you know, we have a kudos page on our website of, you know, what's people have said about our service, and people are calling our news and directory service the best, bar none. There's some other services that are really good. You know, some focus in this area, some focus in that area, but in terms of covering all things exotic free energy, we're it. Okay, so that's another thing to present to you as, you know, where I'm coming from in presenting these top 10. The New Energy Congress I founded 4 years ago in November because as I was looking at all these technologies, it gets overwhelming because there's so many bogus things out there, and there's, you know, you get tripped up by things, and I wanted to have a body of people that I could pass these things by, say, hey, what do you think about this? And somebody could say, hey, well, I went and looked at that one, we tested it, and here's what our results were. So we founded this body. It's an international body of people who, like myself, have a passion about free energy technologies, and I can pass things by them. And we've come up with a top 100 clean energy technologies listing. Top100energy.com is a shortcut to that. And in that process, you know, we look at conventional as well as non-conventional. It's an even playing field. And so most of the stuff that's in that listing, because one of our criteria is credibility and how far along how far along it is in its development. And because of the credibility factor and the verification factor is very evasive on these more exotic technologies, they don't make it into the top 10. Most of the top 10 technologies, exotic technologies that we'll be talking about today, are not in the top 100 listing that we made as the New Energy Congress. And so this is kind of this is an outside the box from the clean energy world type of listing. Another criteria for establishing ideal energy devices, we'll get onto that in a second, of you know, how do we decide what is going to make it into the top 100? I mentioned earlier that I'm building my own home and integrating some of these new principles, and so I'm very personally invested. I'm going to have an off-grid home. I've got a wife and 4 kids to support that I can't have freezing in the winter and getting too hot in the summer, and we've got to be able to survive in this thing. You know, if we have a societal meltdown, which is a possibility for the United States in the foreseeable future, that we could have real meltdown. You know, we want to survive. We want to make it through. And so I'm very personally invested in having a system that's going to work in our home, and we're building it right now. So I think that's another credential I would present to you as why you might want to pay attention to this list of top 10. And then I should mention, just in terms of on a negative aspect, I am personally invested or directly involved in many of these top 10 technologies we'll be talking about. So there's some personal bias involved. I like the guys. I've received donations from some of them. In fact, my wife is here because one of these guys that we'll be listing as a sponsor paid for her trip as a sponsor, Green Power Inc. It's a waste-to-diesel technology. It'll take municipal waste on the input side, and on the output side, you get high-grade diesel, better fuel than what you can get from fossil fuels that burns cleaner. Pretty good technology, and that was the sponsor for my wife getting here today. Here's just a little blurb on our intentional community that we're doing. We're building our own home. That's the kind of artist conception I drew that. We had a guy from a French television station come and do an airing at our house the other day, and I whipped that out. It's kind of a half kidney bean shape. It's going to have a kind of a concrete roof, earth bag walls on the front and back, solarium along the front on the south exposure. The backside is going to be backfilled, so we use the Earth's temperature, the constant temperature of the Earth, so we're not heating and cooling against outside temperature. We're heating and cooling against 55 degrees in the floor and on the back wall. We'll insulate against that, but we're insulating against 55 as opposed to 106 in the summer and -20 in the winter. And we'll use compost.